You know, I grew up most of my adult life right off the river in Olathe, Kansas, and I always drove over 435 and say that's a cool river. Can't get on it, it's a cool river. And a guy who's I think one of the founding group, Mike Caldwell, Laura Caldwell's husband, he and I taught school together in the early 60s and had kept in touch. And one day he calls me up and says, Neece, get your butt over here. I've got something for you to go do. So being a persuasive guy that Mike was, I met him in Perry, Kansas. And there was a meeting there between a guy that owned 12 acres, the state of Kansas, and some folks came in from Wichita, and the purpose of the meeting was to give 12 acres to the Friends of the Kaw to do a put-in. Because at that time there were only about 4 or 5 put-ins on the river, and Mike's goal and mission in life was to have one about every 10 miles. So I went to the meeting and saw where a private individual was trying to give some land, and the government was involved, and the Corps of Engineers, and was pretty impressed. And after the meeting, they said, well, let's go down on the river. So for the first time, really, I went over to the bank and went out on this guy's property on a sandbar and got down on the river. And I mean, it was pretty much overwhelming, actually. I've traveled a little bit, but it was pretty cool. So from that, Mike got me involved, and I joined the Friends of the Kaw and did a lot of float trips. Went down one time and brought back their first canoe boat. Went down to Lebanon, Missouri, and brought it back. And I guess my swan song for being on the board, I was on the water board in Lenexa, and they really needed a home for a place to kind of have a home base to put everything. And it just so happens the guys that I knew on the water board were also the treasurer and the president of the Lexington Township board. And at one time, they had a fire department, and they didn't have one anymore. And they had a building right in DeSoto that was kind of not used. The water district was putting parts in there. So I talked them into donating that. Well, they didn't really donate it. We have to pay, I think, $1 for 99 years. But as a result of their good gracious and a little pushing, we now have a home base in DeSoto where we store our boats and have a little office there and a couple acres of land for really nothing. That was my major contribution to the Friends of the Kaw. I love the place. As a matter of fact, I've got family here right now that's from Atlanta, my daughter and her husband, which is he's from Brighton, England. So I'm going to take them on the river this next week and put them in Kill Creek. And you know, the river's come a long ways. To Mike isn't with us anymore, but you know, his drive and his vision, along with the rest of the board and the wonderful membership, went from maybe 5 put-ins along the 176 miles of the river, and now we've got a put-in that you can get in on the river about every 10 miles or less in some places. So I really contribute my interest and a lot of success of Friends of the Kaw to Mike Caldwell and his wife Laura, who was a river keeper for many, many years, and now the new crew's taken over, and they're even making it bigger and better. I kind of went in. The club was a young teenager, and now I think it's pretty mature now. So I'm proud of the organization, the work they do, and many, many people in this city, like we just saw the people get off the river a minute ago. You wouldn't have seen that 15 years ago, and Friends of the Kaw is greatly responsible for the population explosion on the river. Originally, back in the 90s and early 2000s, there were a good hardcore of river lovers, and from that hardcore group of that really got started, a few people in Lawrence, there wasn't very many. They slowly but surely started educating people. Ultimately, we raised money from different ways, and ultimately could afford our first river keeper, and really became known as far as preservation of the river in the United States, and gotten active with the national organization. And it's really just, I don't know how many active members there are now, but I mean, I think the membership list is, in the hundreds. So, and the sales of kayaks and canoes at at Cabela's or Bass Pro now and around is, that's really an attest to the popularity that really the Friends of the Kaw has made the Kaw River. They're not the only ones, but it's really just flourished into a really major organization. Well, the Kansas River being one of 3 navigable rivers that are considered a major river in the state of Kansas, my hope is that the Friends of the Kaw will continue to educate more and more people along the river. They've done a wonderful job and are continue doing a wonderful job to keep their eye out for polluters and working on keeping some of the dredgers out that dredging really harms the river. But in the long run is that make the Kaw River is something that when somebody is traveling across Kansas to go to Colorado or go to California, they're going to stop here and they're going to say, hey, this is a great place to spend a day or two floating the river here, because it's truly, you come down this hill here and look at this valley right down from the governor's mansion, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful part of our state, and it's becoming part of economic development for the state, which is real important. So, the future is nothing but looking up, and I guess it's been 30 years now, maybe, that Friends of the Kaw has been in existence, and another 30 years, hard telling. I mean, there's going to be school kids out here, and there's going to be more put-ins, and more people are really going to appreciate the nature around us in the state of Kansas. So, and I was happy to be a small part of it. So, thanks to Mike Caldwell and Laura, really.
Thank you.